The 11th of December 2021, a good hard frosty morning. Country people will tell you it's good healthy weather, but if you had no heat you wouldn't maybe like it too well. But that's it, we can't do anything about it, and it's bright and sunny. Shunning of the West, video 48Z, shunning of the West. I see this as a bit of good news because there's no point anymore trying to change the way of thinking of voters or their woke cultural Marxist government in any Western country. They're gone beyond. There was a few successes in Sweden, in Italy, in Hungary, and maybe in Poland, but it's too slow. It's too little, too late. And in the midterm elections in America, the Democrat won. I don't know how fair, but he still got a lot of votes. Won in Georgia, in the state of Georgia, and the Democrat won in Pennsylvania, a coal mining state. So there really is very little can be done, no matter what happens, even if Trump were to get back or whatever. It's gone too far. They ousted Liz Truss in England, and the people who have a grip on us and a grip on our lives are not going to let go anytime soon. Now, the petrodollar was an agreement between Saudi Arabia and the Americans in 1971, and that was that the United States would provide security for Saudi Arabia, and they currently have 30,000 troops stationed there. And in return, Saudi Arabia would trade its oil in dollars and provide a certain amount of energy security for the United States. Now, it was always said that America had a lot more fuel if they wanted to exploit it, but they were keeping it. And there was some truth in that, because now America is sort of a competitor with Saudi Arabia for oil. America has a lot of oil, coal and gas to export. It's a very rich country in fuel, and it's becoming a bit of a threat to current oil producers. So that statement was sort of true. I think it was Trump that started them exploiting it. They didn't want to exploit it up till now. Now, the weaponizing the Western financial system, the way that finance is done and transacted, and how money is transferred, the West had total control. The dollar was the top currency. You traded in it, you knew you were going to get paid, and then they weaponized it several ways, but the latest is the sanctioning of Russia to try to make Russia change its policies by putting economic sanctions, and that's a separate thing altogether. So it was political in Russia and an attempt to change the internal policies of many countries. They wanted to change the way many countries behaved, even though in the West they won't give me my rights under the Aarhus Convention or the SEA directive. They won't give rights to the people who deserve it, and they break the rules in many ways. And the whole way the West has worked out recently is called pernicious by observers from Brics countries, from India, from China, from Saudi Arabia and all that. The pernicious, it's destructive gradually. Pernicious means it's gradually destructive. And they're slowly but surely bringing up this cultural Marxist stuff, and this is really sickening the rest of the world, and me included. The woke agenda. In Hungary, they withdrew, they won't pay the COVID money, that's their right, because Hungary won't comply with all the stuff on gay rights, homosexuality, and all this sort of stuff. So you see how they're weaponizing money big time. Now, so the next thing, it's quite obvious after the Paris Accord that their plan was to weaponize climate change. They want to use this carbon tax to tax fuel all over the world, put it into a big fund run by the IMF, the World Economic Forum, the European Commission, and all of this, and get a huge big fund. It's currently 70 billion euros in Europe, and pay this over to their pet projects, to people in Africa, etc., while they ensure they comply with their rules. Don't forget, they won't allow cocoa or chocolate products processed in Africa to be exported processed into the EU, because it compete with EU manufacturing here. So they're hypocritical. So the idea was to force compliance, and there's no way the rest of the world can go with the green climate change crap, because it doesn't work. The transition to renewable energy cannot work. The other thing that forces things like COVID compliance. the Chinese try to force extreme COVID compliance. People couldn't go home from the factories, and there were such riots they had to cave in. Now they've caved in. And what kind of a policy is that? So they want to combine things like COVID compliance. Plus, if there's another outbreak of some disease like monkeypox, if they get their way, they'll have the whole place shut down, and they want to use the money system and all of that to force it. So democracy with the SEA and with the Aarhus Convention is behaving unlawfully. It's just not as extreme in that in Western countries they don't lock you up and they don't actually kill you for disagreeing. If they did, I wouldn't be making these videos. And it's to preserve that freedom that I work so hard with my campaigns. The other thing you have in the West is celebrity rule. The likes of Nancy Pelosi, the leader of the House, Cher, Bruce Springsteen, Robert De Niro, Leonardo DiCaprio, and all these people, Prince Charles included, all these celebs that get to where they are without producing anything or ever having to show they're good in business. They may be able to sing or they may be able to do something else, but you have this celebrity rule. And of course the most important celebrity is a 16-year-old school dropout called Greta Thunberg, who has already dictated in the West what should be done and wants to do the same in the other countries all over the world. There was a Pussy Riot. This was a pop group a bit like the Spice Girls, all girls in Russia, but Putin suppressed it. They rose up against his rule, but he put it down. So that type of thing is not encouraged. You rarely hear any songs or music out of these places, and in fact in some countries music is banned. So you see the differences there. I'm not bragging them, I'm just saying that we should be coaxing them, we should have been trying to coax them into a better way of life without pushing this nonsense on them. But we're gone so far with our failed and flawed democracy in the West that you have a 16-year-old schoolgirl dictating government energy policy. That is how ridiculous we are gone. Now, Joe Biden, before he got elected, because of some falling out with Saudi Arabia, and none of these countries are angels either, he said that Saudi Arabia was a pariah, it was a pariah state, and it should be punished. It was over, a man disappeared or whatever, should be punished. Now, that is severe for the President of the United States to talk that way about a country which is a kingdom. Is embarrassing for the kingdom, and they don't forget this sort of stuff. You have to be very careful. Now, the people coming here from those countries and the people that are living there, they would like our way of life. They want cars, cigarettes, smartphones. Africa wants to sell oil. And the West wants to stop them selling their oil. And they have taken these other countries that I'm going to mention now for granted. The European Union thought it had nothing to do, only slap sanctions on Russia, and everybody would agree. They're now finding out that's not the case, and they're having terrible hardship over there with energy. And the United States is now seeing one of its closest allies, Saudi Arabia, probably moving away from it a bit. So now we have these Brics countries. This is very important. The Brics countries are Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa at the moment. Egypt has applied to join. Saudi Arabia met President Xi, the Chinese president, recently, excuse me, and it's now talking of joining as well. Already these countries have a GDP, a gross domestic product, 30% larger than the United States. They also have a new development bank, NDB, new development bank, set up in 2014. And it's AAA rated, high credit rating. It's capitalized by $100 billion US dollars. Moreover, Argentina and Iran have applied to join Brics. There are some indications that Saudi Arabia will eventually quit the petrodollar agreement And that will have severe implications for the position of the United States, because it can inflate its money, because in effect all these other countries are holding its dollars. So if only half of the dollar amount of money in circulation is used in America and they print 10%, they actually only cause inflation of 5% at home, because the other countries have to take this inflation. So there are big problems with this dollar, as they call it, hegemony, or whatever you want to call it, dominance. And it's known as the petrodollar. I see that these countries will have a different approach on climate. They'll go for clean things. They will try and have a lot more gadgets to reduce the impact of CO2 and pollution, and they're two totally different things. CO2 is the first gas a baby breathes out when it's born, but pollution and carbon monoxide and all these things is pollution. They're not to be confused, and they are confused. So I see a different approach to this climate. It's not going to be accepted that Germany, who has opened 23 coal-fired power plants in the last year, is going to dictate to these other countries that they shouldn't open any. England has announced it's going to open a coal mine after years and all that. So they're not going to take these double standards, and they don't believe, these countries, that they're going to transition to 100% net zero. They know that's impossible. Now, there's two things about that. If we'd say Saudi Arabia knows that the net zero, the transition to renewable energy, is a complete scam, then what they're being told by their customers in the West is, we want your oil and we want your gas, but we'll not take it any longer than we have to. We're going to move away from it. We hate your product. We'll have to pay for it because you won't give it to us for nothing. And what they're saying is, we can go to hell off and get it somewhere else. If you're not happy with the product, don't bother buying it. My father used to sell the odd tractor. He'd buy a tractor and do it up, and he used to sell the odd tractor, and if people came in and made little of the tractor, he would run them. He wouldn't deal with them. If they came in and said it was a good tractor but the price was a bit high, he would deal with them. So you don't ridicule the product. The product is a good product, but that's precisely what they're doing. Shame on you, Saudi Arabia. Shame on you, Russia. Shame on you, Qatar, and all this. Shame on you. Well, they don't like being told that it's shame on them by a 16-year-old schoolgirl and clapped in the European Parliament that she's right. They don't want to be told that. How dare you? How dare you get out, is what they're saying to them and her. So there'll be no Gretas in their world. Now, they're not a perfect setup either. That's not the point. The other thing which I see getting hit fairly quick is shipping insurance. They're now using insurance on ships to try to cap the price of Russian oil. And don't forget, these countries have a very big capitalization. This bank has a big capitalization. So what's to stop it policing its own shipping and setting up an insurance fund to cover disasters? Well, I know they don't have the same rule of law, but still, if they had a proper arbiter that would compensate for a ship that sinks or pollution, it could be massive. I would see that creeping in due course. That's not that easy done. But currently, Russia is bringing out of mothballs a whole heap of tankers, oil tankers, and ships to transport its oil in contravention of the ban and sell it to other people. And this is going to be an interesting one, how they're going to deal with shipping insurance. But in the long term, once you weaponize a thing like money or something like that, or if you're hiring out tools in the tool hire place, and you're hiring out a cement mixer one day, you're hiring out an electric drill or a Kango hammer the next day, and if they make you pay €10 for everything you hire out towards some local cause, whether it be a football team or a golf club, you'll eventually go somewhere that doesn't charge you that. And so this is the whole idea. They're rapidly realizing the harsh truth that they can no longer trust the West. So look at Irish teachers. Irish teachers can't afford to live in Ireland. And where are they going? They're going abroad to our Arabian countries. They're going to Saudi Arabia, Dubai, and all these countries. And I was in Oman, and you could live there. Grand, it's lovely climate and all the rest. Yet they're warning me that I'll be too hot in Ireland when I'm actually very cold today. It's about 1 degree centigrade. This is the nonsense you have to put up with. But they're going abroad, and the government is now in Ireland banning career breaks to stop the teachers going out for a year to earn a bit of money, or 2 years and earn the deposit for a house. They're banning them from this. So that'll show you how the quality of life in Ireland has deteriorated when you can't attract teachers to the profession and have them happy and let them take the career break and go away and pay them right. It's not being done. They can't get teachers, and that's because the public service in Ireland is a horrible place to work. A ban on career breaks. Yeah, they're banning career breaks. That's been done. It's in the paper. So they're going to Arab countries. Now I remember, this is not to be condescending or making little of any coloured person. I'm not racist in that way. I remember we were told at school the penny for the black babies. There was a mite box on the school counter. You put in a penny for the black babies. I remember when we had a book with Sambo in it. And Sambo was a boy in America who was coloured. He was an African American. And he had a cat. And he needed to let the cat in and out of the door of the shed. And he cut a track for the cat. And the next thing was the cat had 5 kittens. And he cut 5 tracks in the door. And the lesson was that the one hole would do for the cat and the kittens, and he was too stupid to understand that that was the case, and he cut 5 holes. But he was black, he wasn't white. So this was an indoctrination that a black man or a black child wouldn't be wise enough to realise that the cat could go out through the same hole. That was what I learned at school. That's what I was taught at school. Didn't necessarily accept it, but there was a subliminal, is that the word, message in it. So we had the collection for the black babies. I can see the black babies now will be collecting for the white babies, because we're heading towards economic, social and energy disaster and industrial mayhem in the West. As far as I can see, look at Germany. I'll do a program on Germany. This whole thing, the whole wheels are coming off their stupid, silly, mad, green bandwagon. Western empires are in decline, and the day of the Brics countries and the day of the other countries taking orders from these people, from celebrities, is over, in my view. It'll take it a while, it'll not happen overnight, but as they gradually move away from the strength of the dollar, then the Americans will be poorer and the euro will be poorer. I think you get the point. You'll get plenty of it there online. Just a thing that a lot of people don't understand is that Germany went to Qatar. They want them to set up terminals so they can permanently buy LNG, liquid national gas. The Saudis want a 20-year contract, but the Germans say, well, in 20 years we're transitioning away from gas altogether. And the Qatar government says, well then, hump off. We're not building terminals for you for 4 or 5 years. If you're not prepared to commit to a 20-year period that we get back the cost of our infrastructure that we put in for you, we don't want you at all. And they're back to square one. The Eastern countries, the Eastern governments, the Asian governments, the African governments, and the South American governments are copping on. You see Argentina applying to join. You see Iran applying to join. Now, folks, I think I gave you an idea of where we're coming from. I've tried to fight corruption, the ridiculous green nonsense in Ireland, Europe, and in the Western countries, and only had limited success. But while this is all going on, their whole house of cards is beginning to collapse around them. And maybe the sooner the better. Please comment, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. We'll see you back for something else. Goodbye. Thank you.